What would be a piece of advice you give to IT leaders?
We used to say security by design.
Hmm.
We should have this sovereignty by design. So owning and having the upper hand on our data is having the upper hand on our future.
There's so much of data that has already gone away from us. I mean, at least if we can have control over the actions that are being taken.
There's choice and control to be basically.
That's a massive challenge.
Everyone, great to be here at Summit in Atlanta together with Raj and Mohammed, talking about sovereignty and how we are setting that up for the future. What is Core42's main topics around sovereignty? What's happening in the market? How do you reacting?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation and for this session. The sovereignty topic within the Core42 is really at the heart of our strategy. We have been working and developing and creating sovereign clouds for many years. And we had the pleasure to work with Red Hat during the past 2-3 years in building our sovereign private cloud in the country. We are subject to the regulation of the country when it comes to the cloud security, to the cloud sovereignty, and so on. And we have seen recently also a lot of explosion in terms of the AI workloads, and the countries and the nations are trying to control where these data are going. And last but not least, the topic is becoming really, really interesting, following also the recent geopolitics events that are happening mainly in our region and so on. So which put really the digital sovereignty at the heart of the country strategy. So it's not a nice to have, it's a must have.
How's that in India, Raj?
See, I think in India, it's become pretty core in at least 3 market verticals, which is government, healthcare, and financial services. And with AI, things have really dramatically changed for us in India. We are battling the amount of money being put into AI outside of India, the talent that's available to us. More or less, the technology piece is solved. We have access to technology. So we kind of are very, very sensitive to the sovereign piece right now, and across both traditional workloads and on AI workloads. And it's a big discussion every time we meet a customer.
So when you say when it's a big discussion when you meet the customer, how do these sessions or these conversations start?
As customers become more and more aware of the exposure that they're going through, they kind of lean towards you, and the conversation becomes that much more deeper in terms of not just data residency, but I think we started talking about operational sovereignty and technological sovereignty. And that kind of gives us an edge when the conversation goes in that direction. We now have the talent to manage this technology, so operationally we're there.
For Core42 in Abu Dhabi, how does that work? Where do the conversations start?
Look, as I mentioned earlier on, it started with the regulation. So when we talk to the public sector or the regulated customers, so they are subject to the regulation of the regulator in the UAE. So some of them are really aware about this regulation, and we have to respect them together. So as Raj mentioned, the regulation state clearly the difference between a partial sovereign cloud and the full sovereign cloud. So the partial sovereign cloud, we're talking mainly about the data sovereignty. I need the data to be in the country. I need the data to be encrypted, by the way, at rest, in transit, and also while being processed and so on. But to reach the full digital sovereignty, we need also the operational sovereignty. We need that the people who operate this cloud to be blessed, screened by the government, and really we are an upper hand on the operation. The same on the technology. When we work with Red Hat, for example, we have a certain independence on the technology compared if we work with the hyperscalers coming with their platform in country and so on. Depending again on the workloads classification, we can work with the customer on this type of cloud, hyperscaler driven, or the private cloud, which is more driven to reach the 3 level of sovereignties. Now the customer awareness differs. You have some customers who are fully aware about what we are saying. They are subject to the regulator, they are aware about the regulation, the policies, and so on. And you have others that you need to educate to raise the awareness about the sovereignty with all these levels and layers that I mentioned earlier on.
When you say regulation, that's the regulation you have out of the UAE government?
Yes, yes.
Is that the same in India?
No, we don't have regulation driving sovereignty.
Okay.
We have a regulation that's reasonably mature in terms of data privacy.
Okay.
But that's where it stops. So it's basically protecting citizens' identity. We are fortunate that our government actually is taking a lot of initiative in terms of deploying AI by themselves. During that process, they are learning quite a bit. And I think that will lead to a very good regulation as it comes in the future. But today we don't have any regulated environment. It's purely a risk mitigation strategy.
You mentioned a few times models, so which means, I mean, AI and sovereignty that goes along almost in every meeting, in every sentence, right? At the one. So you're using your own model, right? In India. I mean, maybe you can talk about how we are collaborating on that as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, so we are supporting quite a few model developers in India, and some of the areas government is funding that up to 100% of the cost
Yeah.
in terms of the GPU infrastructure. So there are about 16 good organizations which are almost getting there in terms of getting a good model out. But in terms of smaller and medium-sized models, we have quite a few available, primarily which can do the Indic language models, which is basically ability to converse in 22 different languages in India, and that's become pretty mature. So what the way we deploy use cases is primarily we use large language models from the open source world. On the front end interaction layer, we use the local Indic model so that the end customer can actually converse in whatever language he wants, and then the reasoning and the knowledge comes from the LLM, which is sitting at the back.
You might have similar challenges with Arabic language.
Yes, and back to your question about the models. So we have three flavors. So the models that we own, that we develop within the group. So we have a sister company called Inception developing models, mainly in Arabic, and those are fully sovereign models. So in terms of training and even hosting the data in the countries and so on. We work also with the closed source model. So we are having unique partnership with Microsoft and OpenAI to have a dedicated cluster of OpenAI in the country. And of course, as Raj mentioned, we have something similar on the open source model that we host in our GPU as a service infrastructure and so on. And of course, we have the international models also that are available for our customers.
When we talk workloads and migrations of workloads, onboarding of workloads, what are the experiences? What are the biggest downfalls?
Yeah, if you're asking about the challenges that we are facing, the first one is related to the data classification.
Okay.
Because the rules exist, the policies exist, but classifying this data to be secret or top secret or confidential or sensitive or open, it's a bit subjective.
Yeah.
So it's not mathematics, 1 + 1 = 2. So you may classify some data confidential, I might classify it secret and so on. The second thing is the customer maturity and readiness to move to this sovereign cloud and so on, because it's changed at the end of the day. So you go to one CIO or even security CISO in an organization and so on. So we are asking them to change something. So when we move something from one place to another place, so it takes time, it takes a lot of questions. So there is some resistance to a certain extent. But after that, with the awareness, with the joint work with the customers, things after that go very, very smooth, because there is again the rule that they have to respect. There is some regulation that we all should comply with and so on. Then after that, it goes smoother. It takes time, starting with which type of application to move first, less critical, the mid-critical, the more critical, and so on. And it's a roadmap, it's a journey that we agree on the customer to execute upon during a given period of time.
You have any surprise moments?
So we have some customers who move some data to the hyperscaler platform, that after a period of time said, oh, well, this is secret top secret, we have to put it again in the private cloud. Yeah. So you can have these type of things, because sometimes the classification of the data may change and so on. But this type of event happened to us, yes.
How about you, Raj? What is your surprise aha moment in the market?
I think we have an aha moment more than the surprise, because in the short term, we have a massive, almost 54-55% of the VMware private clouds are moving to our cloud, whether as a hosted private cloud or into a public cloud. Because VMware actually, one, of course, is a cost conversation that's happening, which everybody is aware of. But more importantly, in terms of being able to do the modern applications and AI applications, I think we have a much stronger story with OpenShift and OpenShift AI. So customers are actually, I think the next 1 year we'll be busy just migrating customers from VMware to our cloud, and then once they're in our cloud, the data is with us and it's private. we can actually give GPU resources and the models to actually leverage that data and provide certain AI use cases, which I have a team of 120 engineers to actually build use cases. We've so far delivered 153 use cases to our customers. The biggest work that we've done is we've deduplicated the voter databases in India, which is like 90 million people and their data.
Yes.
So we have some interesting use cases. So I think for us, the path that's evolving is that we have a short-term benefit of this VMware migration. And then as they come in, we add AI use cases to that. And that becomes a good thing to talk about, even for the customer internal to his organization.
With the agents, can you talk about the architectural decisions you have taken to make sure that tokens stay within India and you keep that sovereign?
Yeah, across board, everything stays within India. We don't leverage any. So we have our own GPU infrastructure. In fact, I should tell you, we did something unique along with Red Hat. We now have a platform on OpenShift, which has 3 OEMs, which is NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel, 11 types of GPUs. It's not that we've kind of run hundreds of models and we can tell you that it's all ready, but for the few models that we are working with, the open source models, we can actually, the customer can choose whether to run it on Intel or AMD or NVIDIA. And this was an important thing for us to do in terms of the sovereignty piece, because we didn't want to get limited by certain technology and its availability. So for us, architecturally, what happens is that there is a smaller model, let's say GPT OSs, that actually interacts with the customer at the first layer. Then we try to understand the intent and then pass it on to a domain adapted or any other open source LLM that requires to respond to that customer request. A lot of times, use case may not be a front-end interaction with the end user. It could be just embedded into an application, and it does back-end work to actually serve that data.
How's that working with Core42? I mean, you have your strong partnerships as well, right, from the market?
Yes.
How do you use these?
First of all, on the private cloud that we developed jointly with Red Hat, this is mainly to provide private cloud services to our customers, classical IaaS and PaaS services. And the idea is really to offer a private cloud environment which is close to the hyperscaler environment. So it's difficult to reach the hyperscaler environment with all the services and products, but from the sovereignty and security, we are superior in this area. So a bit less features, but more security and sovereignty. And as Raj mentioned, so really the idea was to make those customers really comfortable in this environment, running having all the workloads in this type of environment. On the AI workload, on the other side, on our GPU as a service, so we offer similar services. We are not yet with the Red Hat in this journey. We are starting the discussion to have the OpenShift AI and so on. It's a work in progress, but we'll be able to announce more collaboration in this area together in next coming months.
That's great to hear as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch to it. Let's talk results. Is there one tangible result or one thing where customers come back to you and basically say, that's the reason, that's the key thing where we're getting in?
Even other private customers are now interested by the private cloud environment. So we need the backup in the country. We need to have another copy of our data in the private cloud. So the recent event have accelerated this type of private cloud setup, not only for the regulated customers and so on, but also for the private sector, which is a big surprise. It's imperative to have these type of customers into these type of clouds. Okay, and we could not achieve, and that's an important statement, we could not achieve the full digital sovereignty except with the Red Hat in this private cloud environment. We cannot achieve it with the hyperscalers.
Raj, may I come to you? You mentioned that you have, I mean, you meant government, banking, but also manufacturing was interesting.
Yeah.
So what are any tangible results really on sovereign cloud that you see coming out of the manufacturing environment?
Oh yeah, I mean we have 2 or 3 very large. There's a Japanese car manufacturer who's fully migrated to a sovereign private cloud, and we have a local manufacturer called Godrej. I mean that group is fully on a private cloud, and they can claim to be 100% sovereign in there. I mean they're pretty comfortable at the situation they are in. Of course, on the government side, there are certain critical, like we have certain workloads from Ministry of Finance, Health, and we of course host the election infrastructure. So these are required to be, they're pretty stringent standards in terms of where the data is actually going. I mean, and on the financial services side, again, it's mostly private cloud deployments, and most of them we're moving to OpenShift. On public cloud, we are on OpenStack. We are on 17, now we're moving to 18. But on the private cloud side, we are very comfortable with OpenShift.
So I have a question for both. What is the biggest challenge or barrier to achieving digital sovereignty?
I think the big challenge is that the explosion of the AI workloads and also the recent geopolitics and so on are pushing us to deliver much faster than before. So the challenge is not on the customer demand, the challenge is on us to deliver faster. So this is the main challenge that I see for us as cloud service provider and so on.
Speed.
Exact. Speed of executions. Exactly.
Yeah. How about you, Raj?
Cool. I really don't know whether we can get to digital sovereignty in that sense, because there's so much of data that has already gone away from us. I mean, but I think going forward, at least if we can have control over the actions that are being taken, I think that's how we would like to talk to our customers about, because we can't control the data that has already been harvested. I mean, and India is a large country, large number of internet users. So I think the approach is that how much control do we have on whatever actions we're taking with technology.
It's choice and control to be basically
it's
to make the steps that you can control yourself.
That's a massive challenge.
Fast forward 3 to 5 years, what has this foundation changed the way you are thinking about the future, influenced your strategy going to market?
Yeah. On our side, the future is really to export this joint expertise that we have with you on the private cloud also to other countries. So we are working on the concept of what we call the digital embassy that has been announced in Davos by our leadership recently. And the idea is to leverage the government-to-government agreement that we have with some government to bring this know-how to other countries. So the private cloud setup with you on Red Hat side, how we can help other nations and other customers to adopt this. And it's not only about the infrastructure, it's also taking the know-how, the apps, the expertise, the digitalization that we have done in the country. We are blessed to be in the UAE. The private sector is leading the pack in terms of technology adoption. So when you have even the tourist experience in Dubai or Abu Dhabi compared to what we can have elsewhere in the world, it's a bit different starting from the airport. So, and this know-how is what we are looking to export with the right infrastructure while maintaining sovereignty. So this is what we are working on for the next coming years.
And you feel you have the platform to do this now? Right?
We do have the knowledge to do that. We do have also all the mechanism to do that from political side, from the financing side and so on, to help other nations to succeed as we did.
What is the strategy for NxtGen looking like based on this?
I think the path forward is very people-driven. We leverage the technology base that is there. We do more managed services at the specialized areas, which are beyond the infrastructure, more at the platform layer. And on the AI side, we want to build use cases for our customers and accelerate that AI adoption in enterprises, because if you're going to wait for all these guys all the startups and all to build these services and then happen, I mean, I think many of my customers will miss the bus.
What would be a piece of advice you give to IT leaders?
We used to say security by design. We should have this sovereignty by design in all what we are developing. So owning and having the upper hand on our data is having the upper hand on our future.
That's a powerful message.
I think my message to them is that we are evolving on security even on our traditional workloads. I mean, there is new threats every day and we keep reacting to it. So if you're going to wait for things to mature and then adopt AI, I think the industry will suffer in terms of not being competitive in the global scenario. It's time to adopt it with both hands and make it work. I mean, and give that amount of investment in terms of their time and effort to actually make it happen right now.
Do you think we need more regulation or less regulation?
Well, I don't think we need regulation right now because it's still evolving. And all the models that we work with, they've not been built on regulation. So I think I want a level playing field.
Just one message on this one, if I may. So usually the regulation is a showstopper. In our case, it's the opposite. It's an accelerator. It goes exactly line in line with the government vision and so on.
Yes.
So that's why we are happy with the regulation that we have. Maybe it could be challenging in other countries, which I understand. It takes time to regulate, to have laws, policies, and so on. It's not our case. It's an accelerator.
So thanks for the conversation. It was really super insightful. I learned that a million new things about the both markets in India and in the Middle East, right? I like the embassy model a lot. So that's interesting to go. And I hope we have a great future together.
Thank you. Thanks, Hans.